Hey guys, what's up, and welcome back to another gaming podcast with Jay Buston and myself. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the last episode before the Game of the Year awards are announced.
Ignore everything we said about timing and scheduling in the last two episodes, because we were wrong.
Yeah, more or less. You know, the funny thing, like I really thought of doing what we said and going and put a disclaimer at the front, but then when I was editing,
a little upset you didn't, honestly.
Well, when I was editing the episodes, I actually realized we didn't talk about any of that as much as I thought we did.
No, but it still came through a little bit. But that's all right. Doesn't matter.
A little, but remember, I edited them, so I listened to everything multiple times. We really only mentioned that once, and it wasn't. We didn't really hit anything concrete. We said we think we'll do this, but we don't know. So I was good with what we actually said. I was like, oh, okay, that's not as bad as I thought. We covered ourselves by saying at the end of the day we don't really know what we're doing.
Because we never do. Matt, what are we doing today?
We are covering as many topics as we possibly can that we still find interesting to discuss, which I think we're hitting 4 total. And then at the end of the episode, we'll actually discuss one last time how we feel about the overall Game of the Year.
Yeah, there were a couple ones we had to cut out, unfortunately, because we thought we had 2 episodes worth of stuff to talk about, and we were like, but we want to hit all these, so we kind of crammed as many as we could into one, and we had to drop 1 or 2 of them. So if there was something you wanted us to talk about that we're not getting to, deal with it.
Or make sure to let us know, because we will talk about it again in the stream episode, possibly. It'll be after the fact, so there's only so much we can do, but we can at least, somewhat cater to your wishes if you really wanted us to talk about something. Jay's saying, I'm saying, meh, maybe. It's the difference between one letter, and meh.
There you go.
Anyway, so at the timing of the release of this episode, the next day will be the actual Game of the Year announcement.
It's tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern. You can watch it on Twitch.
Do we know the Twitch handle that it's going to be? Is it just Game Awards?
No, just go to the front page of Twitch. It'll be there. It might even be twitch.tv/Twitch. I don't know. It might be on their channel.
Twitch.tv/Twitch.tv. Twitch.tv /HTTP :
Let me just how to watch.
They shook things up and put it at the end instead of the front. So just go ahead and get the ball rolling. We're going to go ahead and dive in, because some of these are incredibly difficult and are going to require a lot of brain power and commitment to actually picking what we think is going to win, because some of these are really tough. Me and Jay were talking about that a little earlier, and we're probably going to do what Jay initially had the good idea of coming up with in one of the earlier episodes, is having to talk through each of these, because that's the only way we can kind of really get our brains to wrap around what the heck can we actually pick out of these. So the first category we're going to discuss is Best Action and Adventure. And for those of you just listening in the podcast format, I'll go ahead and read the description as well as the nominees. So the category is this. It's for the Best Action/Adventure game, combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. Now, the nominees are as follows. We have Assassin's Creed Odyssey, God of War, Marvel's Spider-Man, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Now, this may be the only category I remember, and Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, there may have been one that was close, but this is the only one that comes to mind. I remember that literally every single option is like, I don't find a weak link here at all.
Yeah,
there was a few that had a bunch, but there was maybe that one that was like, I think this one's fine. We can kind of rule this one out. This one, I genuinely don't think you can rule any of these out.
It's definitely a rough category to have to judge. I feel bad for the panel of judges on this one.
Yeah, and then Jay, I'm just going to get some back and forth with you on this one, because it's going to be so tough for me to even get on my own consensus there. So like we did with the last episodes, we'll talk about what we want to win this award and then what we think will actually win this award. Because as we have discussed in the previous episodes, those can be 2 completely different things sometimes in a realistic sense. So we'll discuss both of those, and you can tell us those as well in your comments. So Assassin's Creed Odyssey is, if I had to put one at the bottom, I feel like before even discussing this one, that's probably what I would. between them, and that's still so freaking tough because I don't think like it's in no way saying that this one's bad. But
that's interesting to me actually, because I would put that one closer to the top. I think it best grabs all of those qualifiers because it's the king of traversal games. You know, when you think of traversing terrain, like Assassin's Creed is like one of the first things you think of these days, and it's definitely got good puzzle solving aspects as well.
See, that was the interesting because I may just need your help on catching me up on that one because I knew it had the traversal just down like that. That's all this game's about. But puzzle solving, I felt like these other categories, or not categories, these other nominees had a lot more to offer than this one did. Not to say that this one doesn't have puzzles, but I feel like some of these other ones went a lot deeper in that category. So if you're having to look at a game that has both traversal and puzzle solving, I felt like the other ones had a little bit of a stronger push in that.
Maybe.
But in fairness, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is the game I know the least about out of all of these. I did do some research on it, but I didn't come across a ton of puzzle solving, so I could be wrong on that. I don't know if you know something that maybe I didn't that you could throw out there in that regard, because to my understanding, it didn't really have a whole lot of what I would call puzzle solve. You know, it had like these little nicks, if you will, or just little fun stuff here and there. But I didn't see any really heavy puzzle solving. And if we wanted to go on the opposite end of the spectrum, I felt like Tomb Raider probably had the most puzzle solving out of all of these.
I might agree with you there. I would say that does have more puzzle solving in it than Assassin's Creed, but Assassin's Creed still, it does have a fair amount in it. Probably more. I mean, it's usually not in the main campaign. But if you want to veer from the path a little bit, it's usually got like one overarching, like, you know, solve this group of puzzles, and then you usually end up with like a really super powerful weapon or really great armor or an ability or something like that, you know, so.
And of course, now saying it out loud, in a technical sense, Spider-Man might actually have the most, just because there's so many freaking side quest things that you could do that have little mini puzzles in them. That. But, you know, it gets hard because you get in that subjectivity of how difficult they are and in what, you know, what really counts as a true puzzle. And, you know, that gets into the weeds. But in a true adventure puzzle sense, I feel like Tomb Raider captured the essence of what I'm thinking in this category. So, but we're kind of jumping all over the place. But God of War, I felt like did a fair amount of that. It didn't do a ton, but you know, God of War's always had puzzles. Like, it's just been part of the game. And even though they drastically did a huge overhaul with this one and changed a lot of the mechanics and stuff, they still kept a lot of that original feel in many different ways, and puzzles being one of them. So there was still plenty to find there, on top of beautiful graphics. I know that has nothing to do with the category itself, but it definitely doesn't hurt. Red Dead, that one's weird to me because it's going to be another Spider-Man issue that there's a bunch to do, but I wouldn't say any of them are on the caliber that like a Tomb Raider puzzle would be, or even a God of War puzzle for that matter. You know, it's not this crazy, long, intricate puzzle. It's just a whole mess of little side quest puzzles you could do.
I mean, that still fits the category description to me, though. But the thing where I think Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War will fall short compared to some of the other games is in the traversal aspect of things. It's like, okay, you're on a horse or you're running. That's not like I mean, and that's really cool. Don't get me wrong. Like the horse mechanics in Red Dead Redemption 2 are probably the best we've ever seen in a video game. And in God of War, you have like really cool boat physics and all this stuff or whatever. But like at the end of the day, comparing those two to something like Tomb Raider or Assassin's Creed, where it's a lot kind of more climbing, parkour based of the whole, how can I get there from here instead of can I get there from here? I think that's going to shine through a lot more.
Well, help me out here, because this is one thing, and this is just my fault for not really looking into what they were exactly wanting. What do you think they're actually meaning / looking for when they say the word traversal? Because to me, that can mean different things. So I'm actually trying to really figure out what they're looking for here.
I guess that's fair. I guess to me, like traversal in aspects to like an action adventure game, it's like, how do you get around? You know?
Right.
You know, there are, or can you get around? You know, in some of the old action adventure games, in some of them, it's like, can I even go there? Or is that just background of the map? Or is that, you know, whatever, but, you know, or can I actually traverse there? Can I use, you know, can the assassin climb that tall tower? You know, in Assassin's Creed, it's not can he, it's what's the best way or the most fun way I can have it.
Right.
You know, in Red Dead Redemption 2, when you're riding the horse and you see a mountain in the background, it's like, oh, geez, I wonder what the best path to get there is, not more or less like, can I go there? So that's what I think of in traversal, you know.
So I was torn between that, which is the how you get there, and then them looking at it in the scope of how much traversal is available to the user, more or less how linearized is it or how purely open it is as well.
A little bit of both, I suppose.
Yeah, that's what was really tricky for me, because like, well, depending on which one of those definitions you go with, that drastically changes how to look at this. So I was a little confused. So I need a little help is what I'm saying here. So I actually want to let you go first into what of these would you like to see win this award? We'll just start with that.
Which one of these would I like to see the award? Oh, that's a hard one, man. I would honestly put God of War and Red Dead towards the bottom of the very, very high shelf.
Okay.
And lean more towards Spider-Man. To me is just kind of like, I think it's going to fly under the radar. I think that it's a good contender, but I think that other games just do what it does better. Although I think out of all these games, Spider-Man would take it in traversal for me. Flying around the city, web slinging around the city was probably one of the best things I did in gaming this year.
For sure. It's so smooth and it's very fast, like crazy fast.
It's a lot of fun. The combat is fun. I know that that's kind of a thing in the category too. The puzzles really were kind of where the game didn't shine to me, though.
Right. They're not really that intricate. They're just
no, and it was more of like another one, like
right.
And then, you know, and I think that that's something that either Tomb Raider or Assassin's Creed will do better. And so I think if I wanted one of those two to win, I think, despite the fact that I know at least out of this whole list, I think I'm going to go with Tomb Raider.
Okay. See, that's interesting. So, but actually, my want to win is the easy one, which is Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I want that one to win because I feel like it's the underdog of these, which is, it's a weird sentence to say out loud because none of these games you would ever think in your head this is an underdog.
I mean, yeah, these are all major AAA titles, you know.
Right, but in comparison to what it's up against, I feel like it's probably it'd have to be, I guess, if I had to pick one. But to me, like everything about the idea of the Tomb Raider games just shouts action adventure. Like every last, this is the category. When you have to explain to somebody, hey, I don't know what action adventure games are. Can you give me an example? Sure, Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
That's the first game that comes to mind every time. So, because I used to have to work at GameStop, and every single time someone asked that question, it'd be one of two things: it would be that or Uncharted, one of the other.
Uncharted
would be right. That would be the first, and they're very similar. If you're being honest, I know you said you don't know a whole lot about it, but the way they work and how just everything about they're very, very similar game wise, and they kind of capture the essence of this category. But that leads to the point that is what I want to win, not necessarily what I think will win. And that one's a little tougher. And if I'm being honest, I don't have a freaking clue. I'm just kind of shooting in the wind here. But I'm going to make a bold guess and actually say that Assassin's Creed Odyssey might actually get this. I didn't at first, but the way you were talking about traversal, because I was on the fence depending on how they were looking at that word, and I think it might end up getting, even though I feel like some of these other games have much stronger puzzle aspects. I feel like overall Assassin's Creed might actually pull the weight of the rest of those descriptions for this category. So I'm gonna go with Assassin's Creed on what I think might actually pull this category out. What have you arrived on?
I'm with you in this boat. Where like I'm really stuck between Assassin's Creed and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I got to give it to Fortnite, man. I really think that. But no, I'm gonna stick with my gut. Actually,
you can't see me right now, but I'm meme dancing in some sort of Fortnite.
I really think at the end of the day, I think Shadow of the Tomb Raider is going to take this category. It's a hard one, and again, this is one that I won't be disappointed if any of the games win this category. I'm gonna be like, you know what, good for you. I agree.
It's all's well that ends well.
I think I'd have a little bit of a head scratch if, again, Red Dead Redemption 2 or God of War 1, I'd be like, I wouldn't have gone with that, but, okay, all right, it's an action-adventure game, sure.
Right. And again, for anyone, none of these games are bad choices. It's just when you're dealing with the category specifically, you kind of have to say, what did this description the best? And none of these are bad choices. None of them. So anyway, so that gives our votes for that. Let's go ahead and move on to the next category.
Next category is going to be Best Family Game. It's the award for the best game appropriate for family play, irrespective of genre or platform. All right. So this is rough.
Will presumably be a shorter category in my mind, but go ahead.
It's rough because it's irrespective of genre or platform. There's a lot of different genres and platforms here. Although actually all of these games are playable on the Switch, which just tells you Nintendo's market. So you have Mario Tennis Aces, it's a sports game. Nintendo Labo, which is their like cardboard box, assemble it and play games on the Switch type thing. Kind of like if you liked Legos and that kind of stuff growing up, this can be a very expensive replacement. Overcooked 2, which is a cooking game. It's pretty fun. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's a good game. Starlink Battle for Atlas, which I don't know anything about, but it's by Ubisoft, so I don't care. And Super Mario Party, which everyone knows Mario Party.
Right.
So Matt, let's keep this one brief. I think most people know these games just because they're so well known and obvious. What do you want to win here?
I want to see Overcooked 2 take it because multiple things. It's not Mario, so I would just like to see something other than Mario win.
It's fair. It's not a Nintendo exclusive, I don't think.
Right. It's fun. It's quirky. It's goofy. It's
it's a great game.
It's a good and it's a fun family game. So that one to me is an easy choice for what I think. It'd be nice to see something much smaller than its opponents win, again with the underdog kind of thing. But I can go ahead and answer what I think will win is most likely, undoubtedly, Super Mario Party.
Pretty confident on that one, huh?
I know the category says irrespective of genre or platform, but my gosh, like if I even, again, like just like the last category, if I had to explain to somebody, hey, what would be some good family games? And when you say family, you're not just talking about age appropriate, you're talking about multiple people, playing with a group. My first answer is usually Mario Party or Mario Kart or Smash Brothers. Like it's one of those.
Nintendo got it on lock, man.
Right, and of the ones that are on that list, we would have Mario Party. So that's just what I would go with.
Yeah, I mean, I like Mario Tennis. It just didn't have enough content for me to kind of stick it through.
Right.
And I like the idea of Nintendo Labo, even though it's not really my cup of tea. I really think that could do well.
Is that your want to vote? Yeah,
I guess. Like, I don't know. If I can be honest with you, I haven't played any of these, but I know what all of them are. I'm very well familiar with most of these games.
Well, you may not have played that specific Mario Party, but
I've seen a lot of gameplay of it, and at the end of the day, it's Mario Party.
Yeah, and you for sure have played at least some Mario Party at some point in your life.
Most of them, yeah. As far as what I think will take it, I guess I agree with you, man. I guess it's got to go to Super Mario Party.
And I mean, I'm not going to be hurt at all if it goes to some of the other ones because I like when something other than the expected wins.
I would scratch my head at Starlink. I'd be really? It lost to it beat out all of these other ones, but hey, good for
right. I could agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
So now going on to the next category, which, man, this one was so much fun to do research on, by the way. I thoroughly enjoyed doing research over the past couple of days for this, because the category we are discussing now is Best Score / Music. And the description is for outstanding music inclusive of score, original song, and or licensed soundtrack. The nominees are as follows. We have Celeste, God of War, Marvel's Spider-Man, Ni no Kuni 2, Revenant Kingdom, Octopath Traveler, and Red Dead Redemption 2, which seems to be in every freaking category.
I mean, it's probably the biggest AAA game that came out this year.
It is. Which
it's this year's Breath of the Wild,
The funny thing is, and I wanted to talk with you so bad on this, but we refrain from really doing any sort of discussion on these categories because it's so much more fun to do it blind and then see the
I
reactions.
agree with you. So Matt and I both listened to all of these soundtracks at some point, even as most recent as today. And we both kind of wanted to be like, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think of that? This is kind of like we were like, nope, we're just going to shut up. So let's unpack this now, Matt. Let's go. This is the big one.
I want to see what you think on this, but actually I have a clear cut at the bottom of this list.
Okay.
Undoubtedly, to me, the rest trump this one without question in my mind. And that is Red Dead 2. I am unimpressed by that soundtrack.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. To me, it's not the bottom of the barrel, but nor is it my winner. It paints the picture well, though. Like when I was listening to the soundtrack for Red Dead Redemption 2, I could picture the game, even though I haven't played it, and I could kind of be like, oh, this is like this music fits in with this, and it makes me think of that and makes me feel this, and I think it did its job well. Is it anything groundbreaking? No, not really, but a lot of these a lot of these nominees aren't really groundbreaking to me.
Right, and I was telling Jay earlier, I have to be careful with how far in the weeds I go in here because music is one of my specialty fields, so I could talk for days on a lot of this, but I'm going to keep it as simple as possible.
You're a musician, and I studied music theory in college, so we both could run around with this one a little bit, but we're not going to.
I'm a musician, got a music theory degree, got a recording industry degree, so I could go really deep in the weeds on this because I can hit it from
that there, pal.
Well, I'm saying, like, I'm trying to explain where my mind's coming from this because...
I know, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Because I'm not just hearing it on the instrumentation side, I'm hearing it on the industry side of the mixing, the mastering, the production side of it as well. And it drastically changes how I interpret things.
I think you need to take that hat off. I don't think that's going to be as prominent here.
You say that, but let me say where I was...
the people who are judging this category aren't musicians, they're gamers.
I get that, but let me say where I was going to go with that. So what I was going to say with Red Dead, why I put it at the bottom is lack of depth. It tackles what it does very well. It's clearly Western. There's no doubt in your mind it's immersing you in that field, but it's kind of one speed from there in the entirety of the soundtrack. There are, slight variations here, but the problem with doing a Western genre is there's so much you have to follow in a rule scheme for it to still sound Western that you can't explore too much out of that category.
And that's fair. And I understand you do bring up a good point. It does lack depth. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I don't know that I would have arrived at that conclusion if it weren't for you pointing that out. So thank you.
Right. So that being said, I don't define it as outstanding music because it doesn't have depth. It's kind of just once you've heard it, you've heard it.
But like what it was supposed to do for that game, I think it did pretty well. You know what I'm saying? I agree with that.
And again, this goes back to what we were saying with the other topics. I'm saying all this to say with what it's up against, I put it at the bottom.
All right, well, let's move on to my bottom of the barrel.
Okay.
I've mentioned this before. I know that you disagree with this, but I still think Spider-Man's nothing special, man.
Okay.
It's nothing special. I re-listened to the soundtrack a couple days ago. It's good. It's well made, but it's super forgettable. I can't sing it. I can't sing along to what the soundtrack was. I can hum along to the songs I listened to Red Dead Redemption that I only heard for 2 minutes. But I played this game for 40 hours. I can't even sing the song in it because it's super forgettable. The one song I remember from the game is the first one in the game. It's a song called Alive, and it's this rock song that's jamming out. You jump out the window. You're Spider-Man. You're swinging through the city. It's a fun time. Everything else, they just drop that song in the trash and just pull out from who knows where, just this generic orchestra score.
I was about to say, did you listen to all of the soundtrack or just the music side of it, like the songs?
I don't know, honestly.
Like, was it like rock songs, or were you listening to like a score?
I just YouTubed Spider-Man OST and listened to it.
Okay, so yeah, we should have listened. So my landing on that one, like, I didn't put it at the bottom, but if you want a spoiler, it's not in my top either.
Yeah,
it's somewhere between. It honestly, it probably would be second to the bottom for the rest of it's just barely above Red Dead for me, because it at least does have depth and emotion for your sad scenes and for your intensity. Like there's a drastic difference in dynamics, and you can feel the intensity a little different. So I give that one. So just to go ahead and talk through these like we have the rest of them, because from a listener standpoint, for all these people on the podcast, there's probably plenty of people that don't even know what a few of these games are. So I'm going to do my best to explain what they even sound like. So the first game, which is called Celeste, is just a modern 8-bit soundtrack. Would be...
were we listening to the same soundtrack?
Yeah. That a modern...
Oh, modern 8-bit. Okay.
Modern 8-bit.
You dropped the word modern.
Yes. Oh, so sorry. I figured Discord... This is a Discord...
No, I heard it, but like once you said 8-bit, it threw modern out of my ears.
Oh, okay. No. Because, it's this weird hybrid of like, there's 8-bit essence there, but it's clear and HD enough to where it doesn't feel like you're playing Castlevania from the 80s or something like that.
Well, it's not chiptune either. Like it's
no.
It's like it's a piano, a very beautiful piano player. There's a lot of heart and soul in it, and then just mixed in with electronic.
Well, that's the 8-bit part, is the crushed synthesizers.
Yeah.
But and the melodies they follow and stuff like that. It feels very much like a arcade style game as far as the way the music flows.
It plays very much like an arcade style game too. So I guess it does its job well.
Right. Except it just has a little bit more of a modern, it sounds up to par with modern music. Because when you say 8-bit, you gotta be careful because you think it's kind of outdated sound and doesn't sound clear and stuff like that. But
right. No, I would not use the phrase 8-bit to describe this soundtrack, but that's my opinion.
Well, it's technically accurate. If you want to get into the weeds, but
I don't. Move on.
But we said we don't. But that's just a description of that game. God of War, out of all these, has the closest thing to what you would call a movie score / soundtrack. It's very, very, very modern sounding. It's very full. Has a full spectrum of bass, and it's exactly like if you went to a Hans Zimmer soundtrack of any of his modern movies, it'd be very similar to something like that. Spider-Man, kind of in the same vein, but in a much less epic sense, I would say. It's a little more
it didn't do
mundane.
as well as God of War did.
No, it's a little more mundane. It has some really pretty stuff.
I don't even think it was recorded with a live orchestra like God of War was.
I was going to say it's one of two things. It's either exactly what Jay just said, either it was all virtual instruments, or whoever did the mixing side of things, or whoever was on the back, the behind the scenes things of making all this stuff come together, just didn't do as good of a job as whoever got one or the other, because both of those things can drastically affect the overall sound, and it's hard to tell what went wrong where. But either way,
it's going to cost them the category.
Right. Either way, for me and Jay both, we've already said this is not our winner, clear cut. Now, the next two, which are Ni no Kuni 2, Revenant Kingdom, and Octopath Traveler are very, very similar in nature to the style. You could compare it to a Star Wars type of soundtrack, if you will, to where it uses it uses the full spectrum of an orchestra. You know, the problem these days is when someone says orchestra, you think of modern movie soundtracks, which is like the Transformers things. Like, that's actually more computer stuff than it is. Like, a full-fledged orchestra would be something like Star Wars, where you're getting the harps and the random metal like just, you know, all these different instruments are coming into play that you're not used to hearing anymore in movies. And that's what both of these do very well. They have a whole lot of a drastic amount of depth in the amount of instrumentation they use. But that being said, they also both have this Eastern culture feel as far as the way that it's sound, which typically Eastern games, the way they do their soundtracks, they have much less bass in comparison to West culture. It's not that there's not any, but if you were to play one of these and then immediately go play God of War or Spider-Man, you would be like, whoa, this is a ton of bass.
Right.
That is happening now. It's just the way they do it.
Some pros and cons about, and I hate to lump these two games together, but I mean, they're both JRPGs and both very similar in style.
Right.
Pros, they make you feel. I mean, listening to the music, you can tell, like, oh, this is conflict. Oh, this is happiness. This is, like, you can I think, probably almost the best out of all of them. Here's its big downfall. It's generic as heck. Like, it's, to me, exactly. You could interchange the soundtrack of those two games with each other or with any other JRPG that's come out in the last decade, and you wouldn't notice.
And it's weird because at first, at least when the soundtrack started, Octopath, I thought it was going to be a little different because at first it had that same vibe, but it was doing different things. Like, okay, this is a little better. But then the further it went on, I was like, oh my gosh, these are almost interchangeable. Like exactly what Jay said. Like, you could probably switch those and they'd probably still work just fine.
And I don't mean any disrespects to the people who worked on those games. The soundtracks are beautiful and great. But you could replace it with the soundtrack of Tales of Symphonia or Final Fantasy 10 or 15 or 12 or 13 or like any of the Final Fantasy games.
Right.
And you wouldn't really know the difference, you know? It's
no at all.
It's nothing special. And I hate to say that because it's beautiful music, but it's just nothing outstanding, you know? And again, I listened to the soundtrack for Octopath Traveler probably most out of any of this. And again, I can't sing the music. I think it does a better job at establishing a theme than Ni no Kuni, but that's about it.
So now that we've discussed all of them, I'll give you mine first because for me, this category is actually extremely easy, and I thought it was not going to be. I thought this was going to be incredibly difficult for me to give a decision on, but the more so. Let me just go ahead and give the answers now. My want to win and what I think will win are the exact same answer. I think undoubtedly that God of War is actually going to take this category.
Really?
Without question.
That's fair. That's, I mean, a reasonable answer.
Right. And the biggest reason that I initially just latched onto that, if you just want like a basic answer, is so I listened to these in order. The way I was doing it, I didn't listen to the entirety of each soundtrack because that's a crazy ton of hours.
Right, neither did I. But
right,
we definitely got the gist of it.
The way I did it and I went back and doubled down on it this morning when I was working is, I do a variance count at work on Mondays, which means I have to go through every single aisle in a warehouse building. And literally what I did is each aisle will take 30 minutes to an hour or so, give or take. And I would pick one and just listen to that the entire time I was working on that aisle. And then once I got to the next aisle, okay, switch games. And just did that the entire day. So what I found was early on, when I got to God of War, and then it was time to switch, my brain was like, I don't want to. I was so freaking captivated by the sound spectrum, the beauty of what it was capturing, the themes that kept reoccurring in places, which is a huge deal in any sort of score instance
absolutely.
for you to do
Theme is
motives.
probably the most important.
Themes and any sort of returning motive is just very important. And they all do this, to be fair, but it was just so freaking clear of like it was not a theme you had to dig for or look for. Like it was blatantly obvious of this recurring theme that kept happening, and it just followed this. It had just a beautiful arrangement. They did a live orchestra, so it had way more of an impact. Because I would argue almost all of these, I don't know for sure about Red Dead 2, but all the rest of these could easily be synthetic, even though Ni no Kuni and Octopath use a whole bunch of things. Virtual instruments have come a long way, and they could very easily be in that department. God of War, definitely not. It is wholeheartedly for orchestra, I can tell you that much. But everything I said about it, the themes, it was a huge deal. The overall sound spectrum of it's so freaking captivating and how powerful the music is, which is interesting because the first song that starts, it doesn't start crazy intense, pounding drums or anything like that, but it just feels so freaking strong, which captivates Kratos' character in a good way. And really, it's mostly male choir in the intro of the first one that does it, but is that real deep bass. Right. So they did such a good job with symbolism from music to visual as well, and it captivates in a musical sense what is happening visually so well that I just can't help but it's not even a question in my mind that this is going to get there because it does all those things. And like I said, I don't know. I have a hard time seeing anything else winning this, but I'd love to hear your opinion on it because I could talk about this for days.
My answer is also the same for both what I want to win and what I think will win, but it's not God of War. It's Celeste.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Celeste is a very emotional game if you've never played it, which, again, I haven't, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know enough about it. It's a very emotional game. I think the music does a fantastic job capturing that emotion of supplementing it. It does the same thing. It establishes a theme early, light on just the piano, which is, that's got to be a live piano capture. That can't be. I don't know this, but I don't think that's synthetic because it has a lot of soul to it.
It could be. It's covered in 10 pounds of reverb and delay, so it could be either.
All right, whatever. And then it takes that theme and it shifts it into, it puts a beat behind it for when things are intense and it's got happy moments and sad moments and all this stuff, and that it's the one that I think made me feel the most. And that's to me what music does to make you it immerses you in the game so much. And I think that and like you, that's the one I wanted to go back to. When I was done listening to them all, I was like, I'm putting back on Celeste.
Nice.
It was a good soundtrack. I really like it a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if it lost, but I'm really rooting for it to win. And I don't feel strongly enough about any of the others to be like, this is the one I think is going to win. So I'm just going to ride with Celeste.
Right.
So
Celeste is actually my number 2, by the way.
Absolutely gorgeous soundtrack.
Really cool soundtrack. About the only fallback with any on that one is it's a tricky genre to really achieve because anything heavy synthetic, if you're not careful, can sound the same from one song to the next if you're not careful with changing what you're doing. So the only thing that gave God of War the up to me over Celeste was over time, Celeste got to that point where it's like, okay, I'm hearing this overarching tone that's not changing from song to song. And I know that's for my brain knowing too much behind music. So I'm trying really hard not to let that affect it.
To be fair, Celeste is also a much shorter game than God of War.
Correct. But it did a really good job. Again, like you said, with themes and everything, it's by far had way more establishment in that than the rest of these did. The only one that I would really be upset, I think, if it won, would be Red Dead, honestly.
I might agree with you on that.
And I think it'd be because I'd be upset because it would win just because it's Red Dead. It wouldn't have anything to do with the soundtrack to me. And it's not that it's a bad soundtrack. It's just with the beauty of what is in this category other than this game, there's no reason Red Dead should win.
Yeah,
I'm with you there. There's just not.
I mean, Red Dead does a good job of painting a Western game, and I can tell, like, just listening to the soundtrack, I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm in a saloon right now, like in a, in an old Western town. Like, I can feel that and whatever. But like also, but it's not like anything overly special. It's hard. It's hard.
Not at all. But we can spend days talking. So
and we
go ahead and
a good amount of time on this category.
I knew we would.
Yeah,
but
so let's
go ahead and take us. Yeah, go ahead and take us to the last category before we give our final thoughts on Game of the Year.
So this is for Best Art Direction. Outstanding and creative and or technical achievement in artistic design and animation. Basically, which game looks good? So you have Assassin's Creed Odyssey, God of War, Octopath Traveler, Red Dead Redemption 2, and a game we haven't heard of yet, Return of the Obra Dinn.
Mm-hmm.
So going through this, Assassin's Creed Odyssey kind of goes for realism. God of War, I'd hesitate to say realism, but it's, I don't know how you describe that, because it's, clearly not. It's got, gods and demons and all sorts of stuff in it, so... But it definitely doesn't go for cartoony,
High def realism, just with fantasy elements.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Octopath Traveler is very unique. It's kind of a 2D, 3D thing. Very pretty game. Red Dead Redemption 2 definitely goes for hyper-realism. And Return of the Obra Dinn almost looks like a picture book drawn in brown and white, because it's not black and white. It's like some weird olive drab brown color.
Right.
At 60 frames per second. It's really weird. But it's unique. And I give it that. And I wouldn't be surprised if it won because of its uniqueness, but the thing I don't like about it is it's just it's an ugly color.
It's going to be tough because it definitely captures the creative and artistic design.
It's very creative in
the description. Design. I don't know on the technical achievement side, because actually it may be the opposite of that. That actually may be a very simplistic thing to achieve computer-wise. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, on the technical achievement, you look at things like Red Dead Redemption 2 that has its, the snow engine that we talked about last episode or 2 episodes ago, whenever that was, and things like that. Like that's a huge technical achievement or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's an HD game, and there's a bunch that look like it, so it's nothing... new.
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaning more towards Octopath Traveler or Return of the Obra Dinn just because it's just a breath of fresh air.
So just go ahead and what do you want to win?
I want Octopath Traveler to win this game. This award.
It's very pretty. It's a
very pretty.
Hard graphic to explain. It's like if they made a old Final Fantasy game, but with modern day graphics, maybe.
Yeah, they took the sprites a la old Final Fantasy game, but then put them in very, very modern Final Fantasy.
Very high def
environments,
but high def cartoonic textures.
Yeah,
is the I don't really know how to. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, neither one of us are artists or know a whole lot about that world.
No, but want to win, I would actually give to Return of the Obra Dinn.
Okay.
Just for continuing, got to keep the continuity here, going with the underdog, and it just being just out of the woodworks compared to the rest of these. And it is incredibly unique. If you haven't heard of it or seen it, go look it up. It's called Return of the Obra Dinn. It's very...
Watch the trailer.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Just watch the trailer or something. It's very interesting looking. I think I agree with Jay on the color. It gets kind of weird as far as the spectrum, but as far as just what it is, it's very intriguing. I remember as soon as I was looking at it, I was like, oh man, what the heck is happening here?
Yeah.
But so that's the wants to win. So talk through it now on Jay. Now, what do you think will actually win this category?
I don't know, man. This one's rough. Like, to me, they all do something. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like they all do something to establish. Like God of War is this beautiful fantasy / reality setting with these amazingly beautiful environments and all this stuff. It's and a wide variety of it too. You've got the 9 realms, and each one looks different and has a different aesthetic to it. And
Very much so.
It's very pretty. Assassin's Creed Odyssey also looks very pretty, but to me, it doesn't do enough that's new or different to really shine anywhere.
Yeah, and I think to reiterate what you said with God of War, I think it does almost the opposite, to where it doesn't change anywhere near the amount that God of War does.
And I'd feel I'd feel similarly with that towards Red Dead Redemption 2.
I agree.
There's the snow part and there's the desert part, and that's it. and don't get me wrong, both of them are beautiful and have so much detail in them. You know, the dust that kicks up when you ride your horses, and the snow that collapses as you walk through it. Like, all those are beautiful and well designed and definitely very technical and all that stuff to fit well. But I just don't think the rest of the game does it enough to give it an edge. So I really think it's going to come down. Like, I don't know what's going to win this one. You know, I want Octopath Traveler to win, but as far as what will win it, I really don't know. I can't really give an answer on this one. I guess if I had to, maybe God of War. I don't know, but I really hope Octopath Traveler does.
I'm kind of stuck on it as well. Pretty much for the exact same reasons. I really hope that Red Dead 2 doesn't win it out of these, because, again, like Jay said, I mean, it's pretty for what it is, but if we're going back to the word depth again, it just doesn't have as much as these others do. Mine, if I'm breaking it down to two, to be honest, is between Octopath and God of War.
Same.
I really don't, because they're so freaking different that it's really hard to put them in the same basket and compare them, because you don't really know where to start with a comparison. But if I have to pick one, I'm going to have to say God of War, honestly, because at the end of the day, I think it has more change and depth than Octopath did. Like Jay said, going through the 9 realms and them all being almost completely different as far as the visual.
Yeah.
So it captured a wide variety of elements. And I know this doesn't count, but if in a technical achievement, I kind of want to think that they're going to throw in the fact that God of War didn't have load screen.
I don't think that's a factor here.
I don't think they would, but that is because at the same time, that has to do with a graphic side of things. So it's that weird gray area for me, but because nothing's rendering at any, like, it's already rendered to an extent. You know, I know you have the ghost rendering there, depending on where the camera is what's rendering, but still, right. It's a very impressive feat that if they at all consider that, then I don't even think it's a question.
Yeah, maybe.
I think.
Although to give Octopath some more credit, you know, we talked about how vastly different a lot of the landscapes are in God of War. Octopath Traveler has many different landscapes to it too.
Right.
You know, you've got desert areas and mountain areas and snow areas and desert. I already said desert. You know, fields and forests and all that. It has all of that, and all of them are beautifully drawn and done. So I don't know. I just wanted to give it that extra little pump too, because if we're gonna say that about God of War, we should also give credit to Octopath. But anyway.
Oh, it's gorgeous. The only thing I would give, the only really thing I can say that makes me think God of War is when you have those different types of animations, you can tell textures a little better in God of War than you can Octopath. That shouldn't really be counted, because that's not any fault of their own. That's just the style that it just is what it is. You can't really do as much texture that way. But
perhaps.
That's the only thing that gave God of War the edge. But anyway, so we're approaching the finish line here as we wrap up on those categories, and it's do or die time, as we say, to where, you know, the Game of the Year awards are going to be announced tomorrow, at least at the time of this video coming out. And it is our last chance to really, after now talking about all these categories and getting a feel for how we actually truly see all the different aspects of these games, coming to a head and saying, okay, do we still feel the same way, or do we think something is different? So we're going to hit Game of the Year again, and I'm going to read out the categories, and we're just going to do the exact same thing we did with the rest of them, and then we'll talk a little bit after that. But so game of the year, the description is just recognizing a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields. So almost, if you want to think about it in every single category we talked about thus far, which of those games captures all of them the best overall? So our nominees are Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Celeste, God of War, Marvel Spider-Man, Monster Hunter World, and Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, if I'm being honest, looking back on this now, I'm kind of surprised that Monster Hunter World is even in here.
Same.
If I'm being honest. I can't remember if I said that before, but I definitely feel that way now, looking back on it. I know it's a good game. It's not saying it's a bad one. It does a bunch of things right. I don't know why it's in here in comparison to what it's up against. I just don't. So, Jay, do you have any that is a clear cut, no chance that it's going to win this?
No chance. It's like 100% sure gonna win it.
100% sure it's not.
Oh, not gonna win it. Yeah, Monster Hunter World won't win. I don't think Assassin's Creed Odyssey will win. And I don't think Marvel Spider-Man is gonna win.
Oh.
I think that, I mean, don't get me wrong. So again, Spider-Man, it's a great game, one of the best gaming experiences I had this year, but I think everything it does, God of War did better.
Okay.
So there's that. I would love to see Celeste take it. I'm just going to be brief because we've already been going for like 50 minutes. I'd love to see Celeste take this category. I really would. But at the end of the day, I'm 100% positive Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to walk away with Game of the Year.
Okay. See, I'm the exact same on the want to win. I think Celeste would be an awesome category to win this, just for continuity, going with the underdog here.
Just to flip off all the AAA developers that worked so hard.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not that kind of guy per se, but it is cool to see something other than what you really think is going to win sometimes, so that
it gives the underdog card all day.
Right. It gives hope to the actual premise behind voting, because when something that is just the expected keeps winning all the time, and really makes you question, like, do we really have a say here? Or is just, is the masses just flocking to whatever they're pointed at? So that gives me hope. And like we said, the soundtrack's really good. It would be cool to see that one win. However, my vote did change on the what do I think will win, because initially I said Red Dead 2.
I swear, if you say Fortnite, I'm quitting the podcast.
The winner is Fortnite. No.
I quit. Thanks for watching. Matt Says God of War. Have a good night. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong. What else would I have said between these? Because if it's not going to be Celeste, what else would it have been? So after talking about it out loud, Red Dead was really, really solid the first week it came out. And then since then, it's kind of balanced out a little bit in terms of the reactions that people have given. It's not just this glowing angel anymore. It has been brought down to earth a little bit. It's still a fantastic game. Don't get it confused. Obviously, it's in this category for a reason. So the other thing I would add to that is, between the soundtrack and the art direction and the mechanic of the load screen thing, with all that combining, it seems like a really good chance that when you look at all those things together, God of War has a very good chance to take it. But that being said, I feel like Jay's choice is also an incredibly safe bet, because it's a freaking Rockstar game. And I don't mean that in a metaphor. I mean, it is made by Rockstar. And they carry so much weight behind that name, and Red Dead's such a huge thing, so it's going to have a front-runner chance just for what it is. So I don't think saying either of those is like I can't believe you said that, that's a dumb idea. No, Jay's completely sound in making that choice. If anyone says Red Dead 2, it's a good choice.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are quick to hate on Red Dead Redemption 2, or really any game that's popular. They're just
Right.
like, oh, whatever, it's just a popular game or whatever. But like look at it, play it. It's, even if you don't like the story or whatever, which the story's great. Like there's so much to it. It's such a beautiful game. And same thing with God of War too. There's so much put into these games. Like don't be the kind of person that hates something just because it's popular. Hate it because you don't like it, and that's fair. But like I hate when people like there's a bunch of students that I work with, and a lot of them are like, oh, I hate Fortnite's such a bad game. It's like, no, you can't look at Fortnite and say it's a bad game. Fortnite's not a bad game. You just hate it because you don't like it, and that's fine. But
But don't say it's a bad game.
yeah, I mean, I don't love Fortnite. I mean, I've been playing it a lot lately, but I hate every minute I'm playing it. But
well, there's a difference in I don't like it and it's a bad game.
Right, exactly. And you can not like
things.
Red Dead Redemption 2, but don't tell me it's a bad video game. I think it's one of the hardest, best put together video games that's come out this year. But that, what's the takeaway from all of this is where we just want to pass it back to you. What's your opinions? There's so many other categories too. Like I really wanted to talk about best game for impact. We're just out of time though, but we'll hit it on the next episode when we're talking about the results of all this kind of stuff. There's so many good categories. There's so many good games. And even if you don't give a rip about the Game Awards or what these people think or whatever, show up for the announcements. There are going to be 10 trailers, 10 brand new trailers, some for brand new games we haven't heard of. I can already tell you what one of them is going to be. I'm not allowed to say it because non-disclosure agreements, but I'm really excited about it. But then other games, I'm really hoping to see something about Final Fantasy VII Remix because the dev team's back on it again. They're done with Final Fantasy 15, so I'm hoping to see some life brought back into that game. It's a big night for gaming, even if you don't care about the Video Game Awards or any of these people's opinions or your peers' opinions or anything like that. Show up for the experience, watch it, listen to it, whatever. I'm going to be watching probably as I fall asleep tomorrow night, and I'll listen to it back at work. Because, at the end of the day, I got to go to bed early, so I'll probably only get about an hour and a half's worth of it, and it's like a 2 or 3 hour event. So, I don't know, it's a fun time. Watch it.
The one thing I would take away from all this, just like Jay said, is that we are complete idiots and have no idea what we're talking about.
Oh, hell yeah.
Literally everything we've talked about this far. We're just two nerds that are attempting to talk about things out loud.
Because we like these things,
Right. Instead of keeping it in our brains. It is more fun to do it that way. And it's really fun to do this without giving any sort of giving each other any spoilers to what we're going to talk. Just doing it off the cuff like this is very interesting because we genuinely typically have no freaking clue what the other is going to say. So it makes for a very interesting back and forth. But that's going to be it for today's episode. Like we said, tomorrow, at least on the release of this episode, tomorrow will be the Game Awards. It'll be, like Jay said, 8:30 Eastern time, 7:30 Central, and you do whatever time zone you're in. Figure it out from there.
6:30 Mountain, 5:30 West Coast, and 7 a.m. China.
And then to whatever for all our Poland, for I don't know what time zone that is.
There's a freaking ton of people from Poland. Hello, Poland.
Right.
Good to see you. Glad you're here.
Right. But that's going to be it for this. We don't know the exact day that we will do the special stream episode for 10. We'll figure that out shortly after this. Me and Jay will brainstorm and try to get our best idea of between scheduling and what would work best on when we can do that. It'll be very similar to episode 5. It'll just be a live stream over on Jay's channel, which is twitch.tv/letsjays. It's literally in the description of every single video on YouTube. So if you need a link, you just want to click, you can go there.
Every single video on YouTube has a link to twitch.tv/letsjays.
All of them.
Jeez, I wish.
All of them.
I would have made partner
including Charlie Bit My Finger. If you look hard enough, it's in there.
If you believe.
No, on all of our podcast YouTube videos, it's in the description. And if not, just type in twitch.tv/letsjays. It's a super easy URL to type in.
But this will probably be the last recorded podcast for 2018. We're probably going to take a break for the holidays. So if you don't show up to the podcast and you don't watch that episode back because it's usually long, it's been real. And we'll see you in 2019.
Very much so. And we will not take as longer as a break as we did last time.
Which is what we said last time.
Right. But I have to say it again, just to say it, in our heads, we do not plan to take that sort of break. Now, last time, a whole bunch of things just happened to cause a trickle effect to occur, but hopefully this time everything works fine, and we will resume maybe in January. I don't know. We'll get to that whenever we get to that.
Yep.
But thank you for stopping by. We hope you stop to watch the Game Awards. Tomorrow is going to be an awesome time. Look forward to seeing the actual winners of that. And then look to our actual Twitter accounts. The links will be in the description. For Jay, it's just Let's Jays. For me, it's M-Lane Let's Plays, I think is the actual handle. I can't remember why. It's for some reason it wouldn't.
You
let
can
me
just
do
come over to
Let's
Let's Jays and I'll point you to them.
or that. Either way, whatever works. We'll make some sort of announcements there for when we plan to do the actual stream, and we'll do everything in our power to let you know ahead of time so you can plan it out and join in on all the fun and shenanigans. But as always, thank you for listening. We greatly appreciate it. It's been a fun 2018 year. We've had a blast talking about all the games. It's been interesting. We've had a very tough time picking some of these games. Still don't know if we picked what we should have picked.
Yeah, still having regrets.
Right. Regrets. All the regrets. But, we had a great time doing it, and that's what matters, and that's why we'll continue to do this as long as we're having fun and it's not a chore kind of thing. So look forward to seeing you on the stream. Look forward to seeing you next year. Hope all of you have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year in case we don't see you past this point. It's been a ton of fun, and look forward to seeing you soon.
You made it this far in the episode? You actually watched the whole thing through? Leave down in the comments, Matt's an idiot, Jay's the best, just so I know you made it this far.
Thanks for that.